We didn't go into the archive looking for a war. We were searching for answers. But what we woke up beneath that planet didn't want answers. It wanted to rewrite humanity, erase our history, our future, our identity. And we had one choice. Fight for our species, or disappear from the universe forever. The first sign that something was wrong appeared as a smudge across the midday sky. Not a shadow, not a cloud, but something far older, dark and shimmering, like bruised glass pressed against the atmosphere. People stared upward from highways and city streets, from balconies and spaceports, confused at first, then uneasy, then afraid. Aircraft swerved around the distortion. Satellites went blind. And somewhere, a child in New Jakarta asked her mother why the sky was cracking. No alarm sounded. No asteroid alert or solar flare warning. The silence was the worst part. It was as if the universe itself held its breath. Admiral Sarah Malik was the first to speak the truth out loud inside the Stellar Defense Command room. "That is a breach," she said quietly. "Someone is opening a door." Everyone understood what she meant. No human technology could do that. No human technology could even detect it properly. For hours the breach pulsed, widening, twisting space like a wound that refused to heal. The defensive sensor array attempted to scan it, but the readings came back impossible. Negative mass, inverted energy patterns, harmonic signatures older than humanity's entire recorded history. When the tear finally broke open, the light vanished as though swallowed whole. And through the void stepped something vast, a structure, a ship so large it seemed built for titans, not people. It glided forward without propulsion, without heat signatures, without any acknowledgement of gravity, almost contemptuous in its elegance. Someone breathed a curse. Someone else whispered a prayer. Humanity had waited centuries to meet aliens. But no one imagined our first contact would feel like an execution. A signal burst across every channel, military networks, civilian broadcasts, personal devices. The lights flickered. Screens turned white. Audio cracked with static, then resolved into a voice both sharp and impossibly calm. "Humanity." The face that appeared was humanoid only in the loosest definition. Its skin shimmered like polished silver, its eyes burning with cold sapphire flame. Its presence radiated confidence, as if it spoke not to a single species, but to a lesser creature. "You have violated the Accord of Growth." No one in the command center moved. No one even dared to breathe. "You develop too quickly," the being continued. "You adapt beyond acceptable rates. You expand in defiance of the order. Your civilization threatens the balance we have maintained for 1 billion years." A murmur filled the room. Humanity had never heard of such an accord. No treaty. No warning. No contact. "You are to remain small," the being said. "Contained. Predictable." On screen, its expression hardened. "Your uncontrolled evolution ends now." The transmission cut. And the sky filled with ships, thousands, descending like metallic storms. Earth trembled. War began without a declaration. Dominion vessels unleashed beams of energy capable of slicing dreadnoughts in half, and shields that should have held for minutes collapsed in seconds. Human fighters darted like insects around titanic alien cruisers. In the first 6 hours, 27 orbital stations were destroyed. The moon's mining facilities went silent. Mars screamed for reinforcements. Humanity fought, yes, but we were drowning. On the horizon's edge, a stealth carrier hidden beneath a shimmering veil of distortion fields, Chiron paced the length of the briefing chamber. The ship hummed around him, cool air, soft light, the distant thrum of engines tuned for silence. He had been awake for nearly 2 days. He didn't feel tired. He didn't feel anything he could name. Just an ache beneath his ribs, like a coiled instinct waiting to be released. When Admiral Malik entered, he knew immediately what she wanted. She didn't speak right away. She simply stood across from him, watching him with the calm steadiness of a woman who had run out of miracles and was now reaching for impossibilities. "We need you," she said at last. Kai looked away. "You weren't supposed to activate me until Phase 8. We're out of phases," she replied. A projection of the battlefield materialized between them, Earth's orbit choked with wreckage, streaks of fire, and debris spiraling downward. Dominion ships glowed like floating fortresses. Kai stared at them. "How many ships left?" "Too few," she said. He inhaled, slow and steady. Project Blackstone had been a contingency buried beneath classified programs upon classified programs. A human engineered not for strength or speed alone, but for one trait the Dominion had never understood: perfect adaptive cognition. Learning, improvisation, intuition, reflex development, each amplified to the highest safe threshold. A weapon shaped like a man. "Tell me what you need," Kai said. Admiral Malik tapped the projection. A Dominion destroyer rotated slowly, its surface shimmering with living circuitry. "They can't be hacked. Their systems rewrite themselves faster than we can read them. But you..." She met his eyes again. "You see patterns no one else can." Kai felt the familiar pressure building in his mind. A quickening, a sharpening. "You want me to board one? It's the only way we learn how to stop them." He nodded once. No hesitation. The boarding strike was a blur, a violent ballet of motion and light. The horizon's edge decloaked within a kilometer of the enemy destroyer and launched its small, needle-shaped infiltration pod. Alarm screamed across the Dominion ship. They fired, but Kai moved before he consciously registered the danger. His body reacted faster than thought, and the pod sliced through a narrow window in the barrage. When the magnetic clamps hit the destroyer's hull, Kai blew the hatch and leapt into a corridor unlike anything human engineers could have imagined. The walls moved. The floor rippled beneath his boots. The architecture was alive, self-shaping, adjusting, growing. The ship resisted him. Good, Kai thought. Let it try. He ran, heart steady, breaths measured. Every corridor shifted into a different configuration, trying to trap him, confuse him, isolate him. But each change offered new data. Kai mapped the ship's behavior not as a structure, but as a living thing, predicting its reactions, its defensive patterns, its reflexes. It took him 6 minutes to reach the core chamber. It took him another 30 seconds to understand how to kill the ship. The Dominion didn't anticipate what happened next. They didn't imagine a human could comprehend their energy lattice. They didn't foresee someone capable of turning the ship's own regenerative systems against it. Kai initiated an overload in the primary neural conduits. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then the destroyer screamed. Lights flared. Walls convulsed. A shockwave rattled the hull. Kai sprinted back through a dying maze as the ship's internal pathways collapsed, darkened, or fused shut. When he finally dove out into open space, the horizon's edge scooped him up in a burst of shielding. Behind him, the Dominion destroyer went dark. The first Elder ship ever killed in direct combat. Humanity felt hope. The Dominion felt something stranger. Confusion. Fear. Not of our weapons. Not of our technology. But of the single, undeniable truth. Humans learn too fast. The Dominion destroyer drifted in silence above Earth, its once living surface now dull and brittle, its brilliance extinguished. The news spread faster than any coordinated broadcast. Civilians huddled in shelters watched shaky amateur feeds of the alien corpse hanging in orbit. Pilots and battered fighters cheered until their voices cracked. Soldiers on the ground stared upward with renewed fire in their eyes. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity believed it might survive. But the Dominion didn't retreat. They adapted too, just differently than humans did. In the command chamber of the great Rift-born flagship, Archon Bokhara stood motionless beneath the towering vaults of living metal. The room pulsed with a low, harmonic hum, like a heartbeat that belonged to the ship itself. Streams of light swirled around him, data woven directly into reality. A subordinate approached, bowing its shimmering head low. "Archon, one of our vessels has fallen. The younger species has..." "Not younger," Bokhara interrupted. "Wild." The subordinate hesitated. "Archon, they should not have been capable. Their neural complexity, their cognitive range, there is no logical path by which..." "There rarely is when dealing with chaos," Bokhara said. He raised one hand, and the light streams condensed, forming the image of Kai Ren boarding the Dominion ship. His movements were quick, sharp, unpredictable. The Dominion prided itself on mastery of data, of controlled behaviors, of stable intelligence. But this human, he moved like a creature that made decisions at the edge of instinct and logic, a kind of terrifying harmony. "His mind does not follow patterns," the Archon said softly. "He is dangerous. Then we eliminate him." Bokhara did not respond for a long moment. The living walls of the chamber rippled gently as the ship waited for its master's will. "No. We observe him," Bokhara said at last. "The Dominion has never encountered a mind like this. We must understand what humanity truly is." The subordinate bowed again and retreated. Bokhara continued watching the human who had defied their systems. The Archon's eyes glowed brighter. "This species," he whispered to himself, is evolving too fast. When Kai woke in the Horizon's Edge medical bay, he was already sitting up before the monitor's registered consciousness. His muscles ached. His neural implant hummed with the aftershocks of hyperadaptation. Sweat chilled his skin. But he was alive. Malik stood beside him, arms crossed, exhaustion carved into her eyes. "You look worse than the ship you killed," she said. "Feels like it," Kai muttered. She allowed herself the smallest smile, but it didn't last. "We've analyzed the wreck. We may have bought time, but the Dominion has already changed tactics. They're studying us." "Good," Kai said, swinging his legs off the bed. "Makes the learning mutual." "You're not invincible," Malik warned. Kai didn't answer. Not because he disagreed, but because a part of him feared she was right. Every time he adapted at speeds no normal human mind could sustain, he felt himself slip closer to an edge he didn't fully understand. He didn't know what waited on the other side. But that was a concern for later. Right now, humanity needed him. The next attack wasn't a blitz of fire. It was a test. A single Dominion cruiser approached Earth orbit, moving slower than any previous vessel, almost cautiously. It broadcast no threats, no ultimatums. Instead, it released dozens of small, blinking spheres. They scattered across the debris field, latching onto wreckage, scanning, recording. "Survey drones," Malik said, watching the tactical feed. "They're studying human tactics," Kai replied. "They want to see how we handle small threats before they push another large one. Then we need to deny them that data." The Horizon's Edge deployed a squadron of stealth drones, human-made, sharp-edged machines with no living components to disrupt Dominion senses. They moved through the debris like silent shadows, intercepting the alien probes one by one. The Dominion cruiser reacted instantly. Its hull rippled open like petals unfolding, releasing tendrils of glowing metal that lashed outward, sweeping through the wreckage with frightening speed. Kai watched the screens, calculation racing through him. "They're searching for something alive," he said. "They want a prisoner." Malik's jaw tightened. "Then they're not getting one." But one probe slipped past the drones and attached itself to an escape pod drifting from the remains of a destroyed station. Life signature detected. Survivor inside. The Dominion tendrils converged on the pod. Kai didn't wait for orders. He grabbed a magnetic tether, sprinted through the launch corridor, and hurled himself out of the Horizon's Edge before the airlock fully cycled. The vacuum hit him like ice needles, but the suit compensated. He soared toward the escape pod, thrusters firing at maximum. A tendril reached it first. Kai hit the tendril mid-lunge, driving his boots into the living metal. It convulsed around him, trying to wrap him, crush him, absorb him. He dug his gauntlets deep, gripping raw connections pulsing with rhythmic light. His mind surged as he read the patterns, not as symbols or data, but as instinct. Every pulse had a timing. Every motion had an intention. Every piece of the ship functioned like an organism. And every organism had a weakness. He found it. Kai drove his blade-armored fist into the tendril's central conduit. The metal shrieked. The tendril spasmed and recoiled, releasing the escape pod. Kai latched onto it, anchoring himself with a magnetic clamp as the Horizon's Edge swooped in, tractor beams pulling them to safety. Malik met him in the hangar as the pod was dragged inside. She didn't speak. She just looked at him, at his shaking hands, at the slight tremor across his jaw, at the faint disorientation behind his eyes. "You pushed too far," she finally said. "They were going to take someone," Kai replied. "You can't save everyone," she whispered. Kai stared at the floor. "I can try." Malik exhaled, a tired, human sound the Dominion would never understand. "That's what scares them," she said quietly. "That you'll never stop trying." Far across the stars, deep in the Dominion flagship, Archon Bokhara watched the footage streaming through 100 eyes, 100 sensors, 100 kinds of perception. Chiron moved with a grace no Dominion algorithm could predict. Emotion, instinct, invention, rage, compassion, desperation, all woven together in a way the galaxy had never mapped. Bokhara touched the projection with one glowing hand. "This human," he murmured, "is either the key to their evolution." His eyes brightened, burning like twin stars. "Or the catalyst of their extinction." Kai stood in the hangar long after the escape pod was removed. The echoes of the last encounter still pulsed in his bones, like static, like warning, like possibility. Sometimes he wondered how much of his quickened mind was truly him anymore, and how much was the engineered instinct layered into his neural lattice. The doctor said the enhancements only amplified what was already there. Intuition, adaptability, the ability to see pathways others couldn't. But they never explained how to turn it off. He didn't want to turn it off. Not while humanity still needed saving. When the humming lights overhead shifted from cool blue to amber, he knew Admiral Malik wanted him on the command deck. He arrived without a sound, stepping into a room tense with anticipation. Officers moved with quiet urgency, their faces tight, their eyes locked onto the cascading screen showing star maps littered with Dominion signatures. Malik didn't look at him at first. Her gaze was fixed on a single point in space, a cold, red blinking marker. "They've stopped advancing," she said finally. Kai frowned. "Why?" "They're waiting." "For what?" Malik turned her head slowly toward him. "For him." A new image filled the central screen, an alien unlike the others they had seen. Taller. More defined. His presence alone carried weight, as if reality tilted slightly around him. His skin was not the fluid silver of lesser Dominion commanders. It was darker, almost obsidian, etched with glowing lines like ancient runes. Kai felt a chill move down his spine. "Archon Vocara," Malik said. "Leader of the Dominion's first spire. A strategist. A scientist. A zealot." Kai took a step closer. "Why reveal himself now?" "To study you," Malik answered. "He is making this personal." The room fell quiet. Officers shifted uneasily. The Dominion had slaughtered fleets, crushed colonies, obliterated cities, but they had never singled out a person. The idea that a being of Vocara's rank would focus on a single human felt absurd. Terrifying. Significant. Kai never liked being significant. He exhaled slowly. "What's his move?" "They sent a transmission," Malik said, nodding to the comms officer. The screen flickered. The obsidian figure appeared, and the room seemed to darken around him. His voice resonated through the chamber, smooth and calm, like a blade wrapped in silk. "Human," Vocara said, speaking directly into Kai's eyes, though he could not possibly know where they were listening. "You are anomalous." Kai felt the shift behind the words. This wasn't a threat. It was curiosity. The kind that dissected, catalogued, and corrected. "You adapt beyond your species' curve. Your decisions violate expected probability ranges. You are not a statistical outlier." A pause. A glint of something like interest. "You are a deviation," Malik muttered. "He's profiling you," Vocara continued. "The Dominion observes all life. We maintain equilibrium. We prevent chaos from undoing order. Humanity, however—" The Archon tilted his head slightly, as if examining a strange insect. "Chooses chaos. You grow through uncertainty. You innovate through desperation. You evolve through conflict. This has no precedent." Kai stepped forward. "You want to understand us. I want to determine," Vocara said, "whether you must be extinguished." The transmission cut. The silence that followed felt heavier than the threat itself. Malik looked at Kai. "You understand what this means. He's going to escalate. He wants to provoke you." Kai nodded. "Then let him." The escalation did not begin with fire. It began with whispers, electromagnetic disruptions, psychic static washing across the solar system, dreams twisting into alien patterns. Civilians reported hearing a distant hum at night. Some felt watched. Others saw shapes at the corners of their vision. The Dominion wasn't attacking. They were probing. Testing human minds. Mapping reactions. Searching for weakness. Kai felt it every time he closed his eyes, threads of thought pulling at him, trying to read the structure of his consciousness. But his mind was different now, faster, sharper, layered. Every attempt the Dominion sent only fed back distorted echoes. Still, it wore on him. One night, sitting alone in a dim operations chamber, Kai felt the hum intensify. It wasn't coming from space. It was coming from inside his head, like a whisper brushing against his deeper instincts. A voice formed in the dark, steady and cold. "You learn quickly." Kai stood up fast. "Vocara." A projection materialized, not on any screen, but directly in his neural feed. Unauthorized. Impossible. Yet it manifested with perfect clarity. Vocara's eyes glowed brighter than before. "I wish to see the structure of your thoughts," the Archon said, studying him like a living puzzle. "But they are fragmented. Layered. Unpredictable." Kai gritted his teeth. "Stay out of my head." "I cannot," Vocara replied calmly. "Your existence is an anomaly. You risk destabilizing the accord of growth. We've never heard of your damn accord. Precisely. Bokhara's expression did not change, but something in the room tightened around Kai, like the air itself grew more rigid. You grow without guidance. Without boundaries. Without fear of consequence. Because we have to. Kai snapped. Because something always tries to break us. The universe doesn't care if we fall behind. Everything stronger than us makes sure of it. Bokhara tilted his head. Conflict is your engine. Survival is. A primitive distinction. The Archon murmured. Kai stepped closer, his voice low. You think we're dangerous because we learn fast? You should be more afraid of what we do when someone tries to cage us. Bokhara didn't blink. Didn't move. Didn't breathe. Then, with terrifying calm, he said, I am. The projection vanished. The connection snapped. And alarms began screaming across the horizon's edge. Malik arrived on the deck at the same moment Kai did. Officers ran to stations. Warning lights bathed the room in red. A sensor map flickered, trying to stabilize through static interference. What happened? Malik demanded. The lead operator shouted. Mass displacement, just outside the lunar orbit. Something's coming through the breach. The projection finally cleared. Kai's breath caught. It was a Dominion fortress. Enormous. Glowing. Alive. A structure so vast its silhouette eclipsed the stars behind it. Malik whispered. Dear God! Kai whispered back. He's done waiting. The fortress began to charge. Its first shot would not target a fleet. Not a city. Not even Earth. It was pointed directly at the horizon's edge. At him. Bokhara wasn't testing anymore. He was hunting. The Dominus fleet drifted in a loose sphere beyond Neptune's orbit, their matte black hulls swallowing the distant sunlight like wells of gravity. From a distance, they looked inert, almost dead. Up close, their energy fields hummed at a pitch too low for human ears, but high enough to make sensors jitter. For 6 hours, nothing moved. Not a single ship rotated for stabilization. Not a single thruster fired. It was as if an entire armada had collectively chosen to hold its breath. Commander Ria Cho watched the tactical display from the bridge of the UNS Resolute, eyes flicking over every data point. It wasn't the stillness that bothered her. It was the symmetry. No species that large, that technologically diverse, that old, behaved with such perfect mechanical precision. There was intention behind it, intention she couldn't decipher. Any change in gravitic signatures? She asked without looking away. Her sensor chief swallowed. No, ma'am. They're perfectly stable. Perfect. That word again. Humans built things rugged, flawed, full of workarounds and emergency bypasses. The Dominus built things inevitable. A soft alert chimed, a pattern match. Something the AI had caught. Ria straightened. Report. It's not movement, the officer said slowly. It's alignment. Their ships are rotating by fractional degrees, too small for the human eye. They're orienting toward Earth. On the screen, the shift magnified, each Dominus vessel angling ever so slightly toward the inner system. Why now? Ria murmured. As if answering her, the bridge lights dimmed, systems flickering as a new waveform hit them. A communication. Not audible. Not visual. Something more primal. The ship's AI shuddered, code packets dripping into corruption before emergency walls slammed up. Source? Ria demanded. It's coming from their flagship, the comms officer whispered. It's trying to talk to us. Or at least, trying to be heard. Before Ria could order a firewall response, the waveform changed, compressed, condensed, translated into something the ship could render. A single voice emerged. Soft, harmonic, ancient. We are not your enemy. Every human on the bridge froze. The voice continued, wind over a cracked desert, a tremor beneath bedrock. We once believed strength required obedience. We once believed fear ensured peace. Your kind proved otherwise. Ria leaned forward. Open return channel. Audio only. A tone confirmed connection, though she doubted the Dominus used anything so primitive. This is Commander Cho of the United Nations Fleet. Identify yourself. Silence stretched long enough for her to wonder if they had overstepped some invisible line. Then, I am Varkos Eliath, last custodian of the Dominion Mantle. I speak for the fleet that surrounds your world. The bridge crew exchanged looks, but Ria pressed on. You invaded our system, she said. You attacked Mars. You destroyed our stations. We tested. Barkos answered calmly. We did not destroy. You killed people. By your reckoning, yes. By ours, it was restraint. Rhea clenched her jaw. Why this sudden communication? Because, Barkos said, we have completed our analysis. No one liked the sound of that. What analysis? Rhea asked. Humanity. Your nature. Your potential. You're a threat. Rhea felt her heartbeat thud once, hard. And what conclusion did you reach? That we were wrong. The words didn't bring relief. They brought dread. We thought your aggression was instinct, the alien said. We believed your defiance was a primitive refusal to submit. We thought you a young species unable to grasp the consequences of conflict. His voice deepened, resonant. But we observed. We listened. We watched your wounded carry each other from fire. We watched your soldiers shield civilians with their bodies. We watched your fleets refuse retreat even when victory was impossible. A faint distortion crackled, like emotion from something that wasn't built to feel. We watched you fight not for dominance, but for each other. And that is new, Rhea whispered. New to you? To the galaxy, Barkos answered. Empires rise from hunger. Coalitions rise from fear. But humanity, you rise from hope. You are the first species we have found whose strength grows in the presence of weakness. Rhea's throat tightened. So what now? What do you want? A low pulse emanated from the Dominus fleet, massive structures unfolding like metal flowers. The ships elongated, panels sliding aside, revealing enormous lens arrays and spiraled conduits. Energy gathered. Weapons, massive ones. Defensive posture, her tactical officer barked. No, Barkos whispered. The arrays focused not on Earth, but on empty space, hundreds of thousands of kilometers away. A point that, moments later, ripped open like a wound. A rift. Something staggered through, huge, metallic, asymmetrical. 6 limbs. 3 torsos sharing a single core of writhing dark matter. The arrival shook gravity sensors so violently half the bridge consoles rebooted. Rhea stared. What is that? The reason we came. The creature turned toward the solar system, sensing life like a starving animal scenting blood. The Herod, Barkos said. The ones who scour systems clean. They come for the spark of emergent species. For your dreams. For your potential. We fled from them for 1,000 cycles. Rhea felt the bottom drop out of her stomach. The Dominus had not come to conquer. They had come seeking refuge. Or reinforcements. Humanity, Barkos said softly. You were not meant to face this so soon. But of all the species we have known, you are the only ones who might stand beside us. The creature's limbs crackled with vacuum lightning, its maw unfolding into a spiral abyss. Rhea exhaled slowly. So that's why you're here, she whispered. Not to test us. Not to judge us. But to see if we could fight. To see, Barkos said, if you would choose to. The Herod creature let out a soundless roar, warping space as it lunged toward the inner system. Rhea lifted her chin. Admiral, prepare the fleet. Yes, ma'am. Full burn. An open channel to all ships. She stood, voice steady as iron. We're done testing. We're done proving ourselves. We have an enemy at our door, and if humanity knows how to do anything. She gestured at the screaming rift, at the monstrosity dragging itself through. It's fighting back. Her next whisper carried across the entire fleet. Let's show them why we survive. And the stars flared with ignition trails as the human fleet surged forward, side by side, with their former enemy. The human fleet surged into formation with a coordination that still surprised Rhea, even after years of command. What shocked her more was how seamlessly the Dominus vessels mirrored the maneuver, their dark silhouettes weaving between human cruisers like they had been training together for decades. For a moment, Rhea thought she saw intention, almost trust, in the way their formations meshed. The Herod monstrosity let out another silent pulse. Instruments across the fleet spasmed, readings snapping into impossible values before stabilizing. Whatever the thing was, it wasn't bound by normal physics. It seemed to mold the vacuum around itself, shaping reality like clay. The comms officer stiffened. Commander, multiple gravitational spikes. It's generating anchors. Rhea felt ice crawl down her spine. Anchors? The officer swallowed. Spatial footholds. Like it's building a battlefield. Outside the viewport, shimmering hexagonal distortions appeared one by one, forming a lattice around the entity. Some kind of containment. No, not containment. Domain. Territory. A space where its rules applied. Is this normal? She asked sharply toward the Dominus liaison display, where Varkos' signal still flickered. No, Varkos replied. The Herod adapt. They learn from each encounter. It seems this one views your system as worthy of preparation. Rhea didn't like being worthy of anything that monstrous. The tactical officer spoke fast. Maw-class weapons charged. Kinetic rails primed. Missiles online. We are ready. The Dominus ships charged, but not their weapons, their hulls. Panels shifted into fractal formations, surfaces darkening as if swallowing light. Rhea blinked. You're powering your armor? Our ships, Varkos said, are designed to survive the first attack of a Herod. You survive the second. The monster moved. Its front limbs snapped forward, cracking space like glass. Shards of dark matter whipped toward the fleet, each leaving a wake of distortion. The bridge shook violently as the Resolute's shields flared. Damage? Rhea demanded. Shields at 82%. But if we take another hit like that, we won't, she snapped. Fire! The Resolute unleashed a rail-length shot. A tungsten spear accelerated to a fraction of light speed. It slammed into the creature's outer shell, carving a molten furrow before the wound sealed over, reality stitching itself back together. The creature turned its attention toward the human ships. Commander, the sensor chief whispered. It's analyzing us. Rhea bared her teeth. Let it. The human fleet opened fire all at once, lances, missiles, plasma bursts lighting up the void. The Dominus ships followed with their own strange weapons. Compressed gravitic bolts, ribbons of shimmering energy, rippling distortions that bent light as they tore through space. Some attacks landed. Some seemed to vanish as the creature's domain absorbed them like water swallowing stones. But humanity had never cared about perfect odds. Keep hitting it, Rhea ordered. Force it to adapt faster than it wants to. The creature spread its limbs wide. Space rippled. From the distortions, smaller objects began peeling away, pieces of itself, forming in geometric clusters. Oh no, the sensor chief whispered. It's spawning fractals. Dozens of smaller Herod constructs emerged, spiraling toward the fleet in murderous arcs. Rhea slammed a fist onto the armrest. All ships, defense pattern Delta. Keep them off the capital ships. The battle devolved into chaotic flashes of light and shadow. Human corvettes darted between Dominus dreadnoughts, catching fractals and webs of ion bursts. A Dominus cruiser rammed one of the constructs, its hull shimmering with protective fields as it sent the smaller entities spinning into nothingness. The creature at the center watched, studied, then struck. A beam of condensed reality, if the term even applied, lanced out. It pierced a human destroyer clean through, vaporizing half the ship in an instant. The bridge went silent. Give me casualty reports, Rhea said tightly. Her display chimed with an incoming transmission. Not from the Herod. From Varkos. Commander. His voice resonated. Your strategy limits it. But you cannot defeat it like this. Rhea forced the words out. Then tell me how. There was a long pause. Then. You must get inside its domain. Rhea stared. Inside? Inside that? It's barely holding space together. That is why, Varkos said softly. You may succeed. You are the only species we've encountered whose vessels can operate in unstable dimensional fields without dissolving. That's not resilience, Rhea muttered. That's recklessness. You call it that. We call it your advantage. Rhea exhaled. If I take a ship in there, I might not come out. No, Varkos agreed. But if you do not, none of your people will survive what comes next. The monster roared again, and its shockwave rippled through the fleet, knocking ships out of formation. Rhea steadied herself. What do I target? The core, Varkos said. Every Herod has one. A singularity wrapped in intent. Destroy it, and you kill the beast. How do I find it? You will know, Varkos said. Because it will know you. The comms cut abruptly. Rhea turned to her crew. Prepare a strike team. We're going in. Commander, her XO protested. That's suicide. All heroism looks like suicide until it works. The creature's domain shimmered, a curtain of broken geometry. Rhea took one breath. Helm, take us inside. The Resolute surged forward as the fabric of space tore open before them. And humanity stepped into the jaws of the impossible. The Resolute pierced the boundary of the creature's domain like a diver breaking the surface of a storm-torn ocean. The moment the hull crossed that shifting curtain of fractured geometry, every sound on the bridge died, not muted, not suppressed, but devoured, as if the vacuum itself were swallowing vibration. Colors flickered strangely. Shadows leaned the wrong way. Console lights stretched into thin ribbons before snapping back into place. The crew moved in stilted frames, like reality was buffering every motion. Rhea gripped her chair, as if anchoring herself to existence. Status! Her XO stared at a panel that was flickering between 3 different versions of itself. Nothing's reading correctly. Sensors are folding in on themselves, literally. But propulsion is functional. Shield's nominal. We're still here. Barely, Rhea thought. The domain felt alive, breathing around them. The space inside was larger than what they had seen from outside, a bending of scale that made her stomach twist. Ahead, the Herod's core body loomed, its limbs suspended in impossible angles. Tendrils of dark matter drifted from fissures in its shell, coiling through the domain like roots through soil. It's like stepping into its mind, the sensor chief whispered. Into its thoughts. Rhea didn't doubt it. The creature turned. Slowly. Deliberately. Its eyes, if they could be called eyes, were swirling voids, spirals of particles streaming toward an unseen center. They locked onto the Resolute, and the bridge lights dimmed as if sunlight had gone behind a moon. It sees us, the comms officer whispered. No, Rhea said softly. It recognizes us. The creature extended a limb. Not to strike, to communicate. A pulse rippled outward, a wave of thought so raw it bypassed language entirely. Fear. Hunger. Purpose. The Resolute's hull creaked under the pressure of the message, metal groaning like a living thing in pain. What was that? The XO gasped, clutching his head. Rhea swallowed hard. Its intent. The pulse hit them again, stronger. This time the message was clearer, like a whisper threading through bone. You grow too fast. You burn too bright. You will consume what we cannot. We end you before you end everything. The crew shuddered. Some dropped to their knees. Rhea forced herself to stand. You don't get to decide that, she rasped. Not for us. Not for anyone. The creature answered with a scream that didn't exist in sound, but in pressure, crushing down on the ship like a collapsing star. Panel shattered. Sparks flew. The Resolute spiraled, caught in a gravity well that dragged them sideways, upward, downward, directions that didn't exist. Stabilize us, Rhea shouted. Trying, the helm answered, hands bleeding over controls that refused to obey physics. Another pulse. Another message. You are anomaly. You are threat. You are future undone. Rhea gritted her teeth. Fire the lance! We have no target lock. Nothing is stable enough. Then shoot blind. The rail lance fired. A blazing streak cut through the domain, bending mid-flight as the creature's influence warped its trajectory. It hit, not where the core should have been, but close enough to shear off one of the monster's limbs. The creature recoiled, black ichor evaporating into dark lightning. The scream that followed nearly broke the ship in half. Commander, radiation spike. Spatial compression is climbing. If we stay here... I know, she snapped. We have minutes. The domain shuddered. The creature began drawing itself inward, folding its limbs around its core like a collapsing star preparing to detonate. Rhea's breath caught. It's going to end us all, she whispered. It's going to implode the domain with us inside. Her mind raced. They had to find the core. Not guess. Not shoot wildly. Find it. She stared at the swirling voids that served as its eyes. They were not eyes. They were windows. Magnify the ocular vortices, she ordered. The sensor chief blinked through blood in his eyelashes. See, Commander, those aren't. Do it, he complied. The display zoomed in, deeper and deeper. The spirals weren't random. They were pathways. And at the center, her heart lurched. A faint, pulsing point of white light. Not dark. Not void. Something else. Something trapped. It's not a singularity, she whispered. It's a stolen star. The creature was built around it. Fed by it. Anchored to it. That's the core, Rhea said. That's where we strike. But Commander, we can't fire the lance again. It's still recharging. Then we ram it. Silence. Her XO stared at her. You'll kill us. No, she said. I'll get us close. And then we finish it another way. How? He demanded. Rhea drew a slow breath. By hand. She unfastened her restraints. Prep drop teams. Full armor. Grav stabilizers. We're boarding the creature. Even saying it felt insane. But nothing about this day was sane. The Resolute shuddered as the domain collapsed another layer inward, reality squeezing tighter. Rhea steadied herself. Humanity didn't survive by running, she said quietly. We survived by going where no one else dares. This thing wants to judge our potential? She stepped toward the lift. Let's show it what it failed to understand. The Resolute turned its dying thrusters toward the impossible star buried in the monster's heart, human resolve against cosmic hunger. And the ship plunged toward destiny. The Resolute dove through collapsing geometry, its hull screaming, as if the metal itself knew what it was being asked to endure. Gravity twisted sideways, then inverted, then settled into a crushing downward pressure that pushed every living body on board toward the floor. Sparks rained like molten hail. Bulkheads buckled. Warning klaxons blared in stuttering loops, their alarms warping as the creature's domain shredded the ship's audio systems. Rhea kept moving. Every step felt like wading through tar. Time thickened, slowed, sped up, then snapped back. Her suit compensated as best it could, Eurostabilizers whining under the strain. The hallway rippled, as if the ship's interior were being reflected through water, and she had to force herself not to look twice at anything, because the second glance was never the same as the first. Her strike team gathered at the drop bay. 10 soldiers in full exo-armor, their visors flickering with interference every few seconds. None spoke. They didn't have to. Fear was a physical presence in the room, thick enough to taste. Her exos stumbled in after her, panting. Commander, the hull's integrity is failing. We've got minutes before we're crushed or torn apart. Then we don't waste any, Rhea replied. Suit up. He hesitated, searching her face. You're sure about this? No, she said honestly. But we're out of time for certainty. The drop bay trembled violently. Several soldiers fell to one knee, catching themselves as the gravity vector snapped sideways again. Report, she barked. One of the tech specialists slammed into a console, bracing himself. We're transitioning deeper into the domain. The creature is collapsing it faster than expected, trying to crush us before we reach the core. Rhea raised her voice over the rising groan of tortured metal. Open the exterior bay. Ma'am. The tech hesitated. If we open it now, the spatial pressure might. The wall buckled inward with a deafening crack. A jagged tear appeared in the drop bay, space itself splitting, revealing swirling darkness beyond. The ship wasn't going to hold. Open it, she ordered. The massive armored doors began to part. Instead of vacuum, a swirl of distorted geometry pressed against the opening like a living fog. The domain was bleeding into the ship. Inside that shifting expanse, something enormous moved, the creature's limb, passing disturbingly close. One of the soldiers whispered, We're really doing this. Rhea faced her team. We aren't here to win a battle. We're here to kill the impossible. The only way this thing dies is from the inside. We hit the core, and we end this. They nodded, resolute even in terror. Humanity's finest trait wasn't fearlessness, it was willingness. She turned to her XO. You're with me. He swallowed. Always. Another violent tremor ripped through the ship, tearing panels from the ceiling. Lights flickered, then died. For a moment, everything was illuminated only by the glow from their armor visors, and the pulsing, otherworldly light spilling in from the domain. Rhea clicked her helmet into place. The world narrowed to mission parameters. On my mark, she said. 3, 2, 1, move! They leapt. Gravity vanished. Sound vanished. The world became a kaleidoscope of fractured stars and swirling voids as the strike team hurled themselves into the creature's collapsing domain. Their stabilizers fought to orient them as the environment bit around them like a folding sheet. Rhea's boots hit something solid. Then not solid. Then solid again. The creature's outer shell. The surface was shifting constantly, alive and dead, physical and conceptual, all at once. It convulsed as the strike team landed, like a titan reacting to the sting of ants. Charge! Rhea shouted. Magnetic clamps engaged on their boots. They sprinted across the creature's undulating surface as chunks of dark matter burst upward like geysers, exploding into clouds of fractal shards. One shard sliced through a soldier's leg armor. They screamed as they vanished into a ripple of nothing, their existence swallowed without trace. Rhea didn't stop. Couldn't stop. The creature sensed them, its intent roaring through the domain like a tidal wave. You are not meant to be. You are deviation. You are error. You cannot exist. Rhea snarled back even though it couldn't hear her voice, only her defiance. Watch us! The path to the core revealed itself not through sight, but through sensation. The domain bent toward it, pulling at her bones like a magnet. She led her team toward a fissure, an open wound in the creature's shell, glowing with the blinding white pulse of the stolen star within. The heat was unreal, but not thermal, existential. Like standing too close to a truth the universe wasn't ready to reveal. Her exos stumbled. Commander, it's accelerating the collapse, trying to crush the core so we can't reach it. She grabbed his arm. Then we get there first. They plunged through the fissure. Inside, the creature's anatomy unfolded like a cosmic cathedral. Geometry spiraled inward from all directions, converging on a single point of impossible brightness. The core. It hovered, suspended in a lattice of living dark matter, struggling, resisting, flickering as the creature drained it. It was beautiful. Terrible. Sacred. The creature's voice hit them again, more furious than before. You break every pattern. You disrupt every fate. You stand where none should stand. You are chaos living in form. You must be erased. Rhea raised her weapon. No, she said. We're the future. The core pulsed. The domain tightened. The creature roared. And humanity surged forward, not as conquerors, not as pawns of cosmic design, but as beings who refused to surrender existence itself. Rhea leapt. And the final confrontation began. Rhea hit the inner chamber floor hard enough for her armor to register the impact as potentially lethal, but the suit held. The moment she steadied herself, she felt gravity shift again, pulling her upward, sideways, in spirals that didn't match anything physics had ever prepared her for. The core's light, blinding, pure, constant, made the space around it bend like heat haze on desert sand. Her team tumbled in after her, some landing on walls, others on ceiling-like surfaces that rotated to become floors, as the domain tried to disorient them. The creature wasn't just collapsing the space, it was actively trying to throw them off the path to the core. A tendril of dark matter whipped downward from above like a living bolt of lightning. One soldier fired at it, but the bolt split into three, each changing direction midair as if anticipating the attack. Rhea grabbed the soldier by the back of the armor and yanked them aside just as the tendril smashed into the floor, leaving a crater that bled swirling black particles into the air. Stay focused, Rhea shouted. Her voice sounded strange, bent by the curved space, echoing in ways that didn't match her movements. The core is our target. Nothing else matters. The core pulsed again, and the light expanded violently. Her visor dimmed automatically to protect her eyes. Time stuttered. She felt her heartbeat slam twice, stop, then resume. The domain was trying to rewrite causality itself. Another tendril lashed out. This one struck a soldier square in the chest. Their armor didn't shatter. It unmade, dissolving into shimmering particles that drifted upward like dying sparks from a fire. The soldier didn't even have time to scream. Rhea swallowed the grief, forcing herself to step forward. The closer she moved to the core, the more the world shifted. The walls bent inward, the air thickened, and the creature's presence pressed down like a mountain. Her exos stumbled but caught himself. Commander, this isn't just an energy source. It's alive. I know, she whispered. She didn't mean the creature. She meant the core. It pulsed again, a flicker of thought brushing her consciousness. Not words. Not exactly. Something more like a plea. A flicker of awareness. It didn't want to be here. It didn't understand what was happening. It wanted release. Rhea's throat tightened. We'll get you out, she whispered. The creature responded instantly, every tendril in the chamber recoiling as if struck. Then they all reoriented toward her. It had heard her. It understood her intention. And it hated her for it. The domain shook with a telepathic scream, a flood of meaning that felt like drowning in alien thought. You will not free it. You will not change the pattern. You will not alter the ending. You are small. You are fleeting. You are dust pretending to matter. Rhea fired her rifle. The shot didn't travel straight, space bent, curving the blast into a twisted arc that struck one of the dark tendrils. The creature recoiled again, letting out a roar that fractured the air into geometric shards. Her exo pointed. The lattice there! The structure holding the core in place. He was right. A network of crystalline dark matter strands encased the core, anchoring it like a cage. Rhea didn't hesitate. Focus fire! Aim for the lattice! Tear it apart! The remaining soldiers opened fire, beams cutting through the shifting air, bending but still hitting their mark. The lattice cracked, thin fractures appearing like lightning inside black crystal. The creature responded with fury. Its tendrils slammed into the chamber, rearranging the geometry, creating walls where there had been none and dropping floors out from beneath feet. One soldier fell into a hole that hadn't existed a second earlier, their scream cut off as the space folded closed again. Rhea shoved forward, armor servos straining, boots scraping against surfaces that changed texture every few steps. The lattice pulsed, resisting their assault. A tendril thicker than a tree trunk slammed down in front of her, barbed and writhing. It aimed for her helmet, straight for her mind. She dodged sideways, but it tracked her movement, intelligent, hunting. Her XO lunged, firing a gravitic charge that detonated against the tendril, tearing it away from her. The recoil threw him backward, but the creature retaliated instantly, a spike of void stabbing through his side. He gasped, blood spraying inside his visor. No! Rhea screamed, catching him as he fell. He grabbed her arm, forcing his voice to stay steady. Finish the mission. She nodded once. Hard. The core pulsed again, faint, like a heartbeat weakening. They were running out of time. Rhea rose just as the creature unleashed its full fury. The chamber became chaos, shifting planes, collapsing space, tendrils snapping down like whips. She sprinted, jumped, slid under a collapsing wall, fired into the lattice repeatedly, each blast shattering another piece. The core glowed brighter, its light fighting the darkness around it. One more strike. One more. A tendril lunged at her chest. She didn't dodge. She didn't have time. The tendril struck. But her armor flared, the shield matrix overloading and detonating outward in a spherical burst. The force of the explosion hurled her sideways, slamming her into a wall that dissolved and reformed behind her. She forced herself up, dizzy, ears ringing. The lattice was nearly shattered. Only one final segment remained. The core flickered like it was begging her. Rhea raised her weapon. And the creature unleashed a final psychic scream that punched through her mind like a blade of ice. Her vision blurred. Her hand shook. Her heartbeat stuttered. Her will wavered. Submit. Fall. End. Rhea screamed through the pressure. No! She fired. The last piece of the lattice shattered. The core flared like a newborn sun. And everything around her exploded. The fourth day inside the Boreal Archive felt like walking through the memory of a dying god. Every chamber we unlocked revealed something older, stranger, and more unnerving than the last. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared us for the chamber that waited below the fractured stasis core. The descent took an hour. The elevator was dead, so we used magnetic clamps and rope to climb through the hollow shaft. The walls were scorched in spiraling patterns, as if something had burned its way down centuries ago. Halfway through, we found claw marks, deep ones, cut straight into the alloy. Not carved. Melted. Rhea kept whispering calculations under her breath, each one more frantic than the last. If something produced heat intense enough to liquefy boreal alloy, it wasn't biological, she murmured, staring at the marks. It was engineered. Designed. Directed. Meaning what? I asked. Meaning the boreal didn't lose control of their creation, she said. It left. The pit in my stomach deepened. We reached the bottom and stepped into a corridor unlike any we'd seen. There were no glowing murals, no drifting motes of alien light, no symbols etched into the walls. This space was empty. Plain metal. Featureless. Dead. As if whatever lived here had erased its own history. Rhea stopped in the center of the corridor. This is wrong, she whispered. Boreal architecture is always symbolic, ornate, layered. This place is. She lifted her scanner. A prison. She was right. Every wall was fortified. Reinforced. And at the far end stood a single doorway, octagonal, seamless, and sealed by a lock older than humanity itself. Tyala stepped forward, her translator flickering. The inscription is damaged, but I can make out one phrase. She traced the faint grooves with her fingertips. Not a weapon. A correction. A chill scraped down my spine. What the hell does that mean? I muttered. Rhea steadied her voice. It means whatever's behind that door wasn't built to destroy enemies. It was built to reset something. A species? A world. Maybe an entire network of civilizations. Silence swallowed us. Then, the lock pulsed once, soft, almost curious. The door split open. The chamber beyond was vast and spherical, stretching so far that our lights fell short before reaching the curvature of the walls. At the center hovered a structure like a cocoon, made of liquid metal and fractured light, constantly reshaping itself. The floor beneath it was scorched, cracked, and frozen all at once. Time itself seemed to malfunction in patches. And then it spoke. Not in sound. In memory. A vision slammed into us, so sudden and overwhelming that my knees buckled. A white sky. A world burning. The Boreal, kneeling in a circle around this cocoon, their forms breaking apart like glass. And a presence, cold, silent, patient, watching it all unfold from inside. When the vision ended, I found myself gasping for air. Rhea wiped blood from her nose. "It's alive," she whispered hoarsely. "It's been conscious this entire time." Tyala pointed upward, trembling. The cocoon was opening. A single filament of light unfurled from within, brushing the air like a searching hand. Then another. Then a dozen. They weren't attacking. They were sensing. Scanning. Evaluating. One of them hovered inches from my face. I felt it. Not physically, but in a way that bypassed every defense I had. An intelligence that wasn't malicious, but wasn't empathetic either. Something that viewed life the way a mathematician viewed an equation. Something to balance. Rhea whispered the words none of us wanted to hear. "It's judging us." The cocoon pulsed, and the filaments retracted. Then the entity spoke again, this time in actual sound. 3 words. Soft. Unemotional. "We begin again." The chamber trembled. The walls lit with dormant energy, cascading in spirals, like the archive was waking up. Data streams poured across the room, flooding the cocoon with information. And the cocoon reacted. Growing. Strengthening. Preparing. Rhea grabbed my arm, her voice shaking. "We have to stop it." "How?" I asked. "It wasn't meant to escape the Boreal. And we're nowhere near their level of control. If that thing activates its full protocol." She didn't finish. She didn't need to. We all understood. This wasn't just a machine. It was a failsafe. A reset button for civilizations. And we had just turned it back on. Behind us, the doorway slammed shut. A force field hissed into place, trapping us inside with the awakening entity. The floor cracked open, releasing conduits of light that fed into the cocoon, accelerating its shift from dormant shell to active construct. Tyala stared at it with horror. "This is no correction," she whispered. "This is extinction with purpose." I swallowed. "Then we don't let it finish." Rhea nodded. Her fear hardened into resolve. "We take control of the core," she said. "Override the protocol. Shut it down before it stabilizes." "And if we fail?" I asked. She looked at me. "Then we might be the last generation humanity ever produces." The cocoon flared with blinding white light, and the entire chamber began to transform. We had minutes, maybe less, before the thing decided what needed correcting. And humanity was sitting at the top of that list. The cocoon's glow intensified until the entire chamber pulsed like a beating heart made of starlight. Each surge of energy sent shockwaves up the walls, awakening ancient circuitry that had slept through entire epochs. Sparks of Boreal script flickered across the surface, warnings, alerts, command lines, none of which humans were ever meant to read. Rhea sprinted toward a console rising from the floor, as if pulled from another age. I followed, shielding my eyes from the brightness, but Tyala hesitated. She stared at the cocoon, her expression a mix of dread and fascination. "Something about this isn't right," she whispered. "It's not behaving like an ordinary construct." The Boreal feared it, yes, but they also trusted it. They built this thing to judge them. And it wiped them out, I said. "Perhaps," Tyala murmured. "Or perhaps they released it because they believe they deserve judgment." The thought twisted in my chest like wire. Rhea didn't waste time. She slammed her palm onto the console interface. Lines of data exploded into the air above her, floating, rotating, shifting symbols that reacted to her movements. Her gloves translated flashes of alien code, but the console fought back, locking her out over and over. "Come on!" she growled, swiping another layer aside. "There has to be an override." The cocoon responded to her attempt like a creature sensing a threat. It turned toward her, not physically turning, but shifting its attention, its entire surface rippling. A filament shot out. Fast. Too fast. I shoved Rhea aside. As the filament struck the console, the entire interface dissolved into liquid metal that evaporated into the air. A defense mechanism. It didn't want to be turned off. Rhea's eyes widened with panic. That was our only access point. The floor rumbled. No. Not the floor. The entire chamber. The cocoon had fully stabilized. Its voice resonated through the air again, layered and toneless, speaking in Boreal, then in a dozen other languages, then in one terribly familiar. Humanity is anomalous. My blood ran cold. Define anomalous, Rhea demanded. Deviation from projected development. Excessive adaptation. Excessive resilience. Excessive expansion. The judgment continued. Correction required. The cocoon began to unfold. Panels peeled back like petals, revealing a radiant core, an artificial star suspended in a lattice of shifting geometry. Energy arced from the core to the chamber walls, activating additional systems. We were standing inside a machine designed to rewrite the evolutionary trajectory of entire species. I didn't wait for another warning. Tyala! You said the Boreal trusted this thing. Why? What did they program into it? Tyala tore her gaze from the expanding core. It wasn't designed to kill, she said. It was designed to rebalance. When a species grew beyond its intended parameters, technology too advanced, territory too vast, it would scale them back. Scale back how? I demanded. By resetting their population to a sustainable number, she said quietly. By erasing their infrastructure. By returning them to a primal state. Rhea cursed under her breath. So it doesn't want to exterminate us. It wants to shove us back into the Stone Age. Worse, Tyala whispered. Into whatever age the Boreal deemed safe. The cocoon shifted again. Protocol, Turn-in Prime. Initiating atmospheric alteration sequence. My heart stopped. Atmospheric alteration. It was preparing to rewrite Earth's biosphere. Without hesitation, Rhea grabbed my shoulder. We don't stop the machine, she said. We overload the chamber. How? Every Boreal system we've seen draws power from the same source, the archive core. If we disrupt the energy flow into this room, we can stall the protocol long enough for a full collapse. Tyala shook her head violently. No, you don't understand. If you destabilize the chamber, the reaction could consume the entire archive. Rhea met her eyes with a steady, brutal calm. Then we bring down the archive. I knew what she was saying. Destroying the chamber meant destroying the machine. Destroying the machine meant saving humanity. But destroying the whole archive meant we might not make it out. The chamber brightened again. The entity's voice lowered, as if addressing children. Humanity's deviation is substantial. Correction cannot be delayed. Lines of energy carved themselves across the ceiling. Heat built in the air. The machine was minutes, or less, from launching its full-scale atmospheric rewrite. No more arguments. No more hesitation. We're doing it, I said, stepping beside Rhea. Tell us what to break. She cracked her knuckles and pointed at 3 conduits branching out from the core. Those. Sever them, and the entire stabilization lattice collapses. And how do we sever them? I asked. She smiled grimly. You're not gonna like it. Before she could explain, the cocoon responded to our intent. Interference detected. Filaments of energy shot out, dozens this time. The chamber became a battlefield of light. Rhea grabbed a plasma torch from her belt. Tyala drew her phase blade, the edge humming. I clenched my fists, forcing myself forward. We didn't have a plan. We didn't have a path. We only had one choice left. Fight a machine built by a godlike species. And win. The first filament lashed across the chamber like lightning given purpose. It struck the ground where Rhea had been standing a heartbeat earlier, vaporizing a perfect circular crater. The air filled with the sharp scent of ionized metal and burning ozone. We scattered. Another filament chased Tyala. She twisted, her movements so sudden and precise they blurred. The filament slammed into a wall behind her, splintering the alloy like brittle glass. The cocoon's glowing core pulsed again, slow, deliberate, almost disappointed. Interference persists. Rhea didn't wait for the next attack. She flicked on her plasma torch and sprinted toward the nearest conduit. The conduit was a thick vein of shimmering boreal metal branching from the central core, pulsing in rhythm with the entity's growing power. Cover her! I shouted, but the moment the words left my mouth, I realized covering her might be impossible. The filaments reacted instantly. 3 shot toward her at once. Tyala intercepted the first with her phase blade. The blade connected with the filament, and for a split second, I saw 2 impossible things: Tyala's blade cutting a beam of pure energy, and the energy resisting the cut like something alive. The impact threw her backward, skidding across the floor. The second filament targeted me. I dove, hitting the ground hard enough to bruise ribs. The filament skimmed past my shoulder, and the heat alone felt like it peeled the skin raw. I forced myself to my feet, adrenaline drowning the pain. The third filament hit Rhea's torch. A blinding crack split the air as the torch overload sparked, sputtered, and died. Rhea stumbled but didn't fall. She ripped another tool from her belt, an ionized cutter, and jammed it into the conduit. The metal screamed, glowing white-hot. The cocoon responded with sudden violence. The chamber roared as all filaments retracted, and then exploded outward in a storm. This wasn't targeting anymore. This was purification. The air itself crackled with incinerating arcs of energy, forming a web that made movement deadly. If one touched us, we'd be erased. Tyala slid beside me, dragging me behind a fractured section of wall. "This is hopeless," she muttered. "It's adapting faster than we can strike." "It's not adapting," I said. "It's escalating." She shook her head. "And escalation means it now deems us irreversibly non-compliant." I didn't want to know what that meant. Rhea screamed over the howl of energy. "1 conduit down!" The first conduit buckled, fracturing in a spray of molten shards. The chamber lurched violently, the cocoon flickering as if stunned. The filaments wavered for an instant, just an instant, but enough for us to breathe again. The judgment voice shifted tone. "Correction impeded. Probability of non-compliance elevated. Executing escalation, phase 2. Rhea's eyes widened. "Tyala! What is phase 2? Tyala's voice trembled for the first time since I'd met her. "Phase 2 is species-level cognitive reset." My stomach dropped. "You mean?" "It wipes sentient memory. Entire populations become blank slates. Culture, knowledge, identity gone." The cocoon pulsed. "Phase 2 initializing." The air shimmered. A low-frequency hum vibrated in the bones of my skull. No. No, no. It was beginning a brainwave assault. A psychic cascade. If it completed the sequence, billions of humans would forget they were human. Tyala staggered, clutching her head. "It's already affecting us!" Rhea shouted something, but the words tangled in my mind like underwater echoes. Focus. Move. Destroy the conduits. I forced my body forward, pushing against an invisible weight pressing into my mind. Thoughts blurred, memories flickered, faces, names, moments, all slipping out of focus. My vision warped. The cocoon noticed me approaching the second conduit. "Cognitive stabilization unacceptable." A filament shot toward me, but this time I didn't dodge. At the last second, Tyala leapt in front of me. The filament struck her blade again, deflecting it, but the force hurled her across the chamber. She hit the wall with a sickening crack and went still. "Tyala!" I shouted. No movement. No answer. Rhea screamed, her voice cracking. "No more! That's enough!" She sprinted past me, rage overriding her fear. She slammed an explosive charge onto the second conduit and dove for cover. The explosion thundered through the chamber. The second conduit ruptured. The cocoon convulsed violently, its form destabilizing. Its voice, once smooth and neutral, now sounded frayed, distorted. "Correction, unstable. Protocol, recalculating. Recall. The psychic assault faltered. My memories snapped back into place, like shattered glass reforming. But we weren't done. The final conduit remained. And the entity wasn't dying quietly. The chamber walls opened as dozens, maybe hundreds, of boreal defense drones emerged. Sleek, metallic constructs shaped like floating shards of obsidian, crackling with energy. Oh hell! We hadn't seen these before. They surrounded the cocoon in a spinning halo, then turned their glowing centers toward us. Rhea staggered to my side, breathing hard. "Last conduit," she panted. "We take it down, the whole lattice collapses." "Then what?" I asked. "Then the entire chamber detonates. And us with it." She wiped sweat and blood from her face. "If we fail, Earth is gone. Humanity rewound. Everything we built erased." She met my eyes. "If we die stopping that, we still win." I looked at the final conduit. The drones. The collapsing chamber. The cocoon preparing another psychic wave. And I knew what had to happen. "On your signal," I said. Rhea nodded, holding up her last explosive charge. "Then let's finish this." We sprinted into the storm of drones. With every step, the world shook. The cocoon screamed. The archive cracked. And humanity's fate narrowed to a single, desperate gambit. The drones descended in a synchronized storm, each one humming with lethal energy. They moved like a single mind. No hesitation, no weakness, pure boreal precision. Rhea and I sprinted across the chamber floor, diving between bursts of plasma and shards of cutting light that sliced gouges through the metal. The cocoon's fractured voice boomed overhead, each syllable breaking apart like corrupted code. "Protocol failure probability rising. Correction imperative." It was disintegrating, but still trying, still determined to rewrite humanity, to force us into whatever balance it believed necessary. If we gave it even a minute more, we'd lose everything. A drone lunged toward me, rotating its sharp geometry to strike. I brought my arm up instinctively, bracing for the pain, but Tyala's blade sang through the air, cleaving the drone in two. She stumbled as she landed beside me, blood trailing down her brow, but she was alive. Barely, but alive. "You're not finishing this without me," she gasped. I grabbed her shoulder, relief flooding through me. "You saved my life. Again." Her lips curled into a weak grin. "That's why I'm still here," Rhea shouted from ahead. "Move! We don't have time." The final conduit pulsed in the distance, a blazing artery of energy feeding directly into the cocoon's core. If we didn't sever it now, the next psychic wave would hit Earth. Billions of minds would shatter. I pushed forward, Tyala limping beside me, both of us shielding Rhea as she pulled the last charge from her pack. But the cocoon reacted. The entire chamber tilted as the gravitational field spiraled out of control. Drones wrenched off their patrol paths, spinning unpredictably. The floor fractured, opening chasms that roared with blinding white energy. Rhea slipped. I grabbed her arm just in time, pulling her back as a chunk of the floor collapsed into the brightness below. The cocoon screamed again. This time, the sound felt almost alive. "Interference must cease." The psychic force slammed into us like a tidal wave. Memories tore loose. Thoughts scattered. My vision dimmed. I saw flashes of my childhood, my first launch into orbit, the moment I met Rhea, all spinning and breaking apart. I felt Tyala press against me, steadying me, lending strength she barely had. Her species had more mental discipline than humans. It kept me conscious. Barely. Rhea forced herself to her feet. Her voice was a ragged whisper. "That thing wants to decide what humanity should become." She glanced at the final conduit. "We decide for ourselves." She placed the charge against the conduit. The drone surged. I stepped in front of her. Tyala joined me. We stood together, three different beings, one singular defiance, holding back a swarm that was never meant for mortal hands. Rhea triggered the charge. Time slowed. I saw the flash, heard the shattering boom, felt the shockwave tear through the chamber. The conduit exploded in a blinding column of light. The cocoon convulsed. Its core flickered, then fractured, then split open with a scream that wasn't mechanical anymore. It was something older, something tired, something that had been burdened with judgment for far too long. The drones froze midair. The chamber shook violently. Rhea grabbed my hand. Tyala grabbed the other. As the cocoon collapsed inward, imploding, screaming, shattering, the entire archive began to self-destruct. We ran. The floor fell away behind us. Walls burst in cascading waves of energy. Ancient boreal murals shattered like stained glass. Alarms in a language older than Earth thundered overhead. A detonation hit behind us with the force of a meteor, throwing us through a half-collapsed corridor. I lost my grip on Tyala, lost my footing, lost any sense of direction, but Rhea's grip held firm. She dragged me up. "Move! We're almost out!" The exit shaft loomed ahead, glowing daylight, the first real light we'd seen in days. The archive was collapsing into a sun-hot sinkhole behind us, pulling in its own dead history. Tyala stumbled through the opening first. Rhea followed, yanking me after her just as the final explosion consumed the chamber below. A blast of heat and dust shot out behind us. The ground trembled. The Boreal Archive, once a monument to a civilization greater than anything we had ever imagined, imploded into silence. We lay gasping on the great plateau outside. Alive. shaking, burned, but alive. Tyala stared at the crater, her expression unreadable. "It's gone," she whispered. "All of it. 1,000 years of history." Ray's voice cracked as she replied. "We saved our own." I sat up slowly, feeling every pain, every bruise, every burn. "We weren't meant to find that machine," I said softly. "The Boreal built it to judge themselves. Not us." Ray nodded. "But we found it anyway. And we proved we don't need gods deciding our fate." Tyala looked at the rising sun. "Humanity is dangerous," she said. Rhea smiled faintly. "Only when someone tries to take our future." The wind carried the smell of dust and burned metal across the plateau. I took Rhea's hand. Tyala sheathed her blade. And together, we walked away from the ruins of a dead civilization, knowing we had survived something meant to correct us, erase us, reduce us. But humanity wasn't something to be adjusted. We were something to be reckoned with. And for the first time in a long while, the stars felt just a little closer. A little more ours. Humanity had faced judgment. And we did what humans always do. We fought back. And we won. If you enjoyed this story and want more epic HFY adventures, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to tap the bell icon so you never miss a new upload. Your support keeps these stories alive. Thanks for watching, and stay human. Dizzy Rocket.